Hello everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Kreations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's Tumbler tutorial, I am going to show you how I created this Winter Wonderland 12-ounce round mug. Since I've missed a lot of the month of September and October, I'm trying to pump out these videos for y'all for the months of November and December so I can get y'all ready for the holidays. Like always, all of my materials will be posted in my description below, including some links and coupon codes for y'all to use. And for all of my beginner crafters, I will have a list of beginner help tutorials down below as well. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this tumbler. I did receive this mug from Makerflow Crafts. I will have their link in my description below. What I did first was sand this tumbler down with a 180 grit sanding block, and then I wiped it down with 91% alcohol. Be sure to wipe down the handle as well with 91% alcohol, and make sure you get inside the handle as well on the tumbler. I have two glue sticks. I have a mini glue stick and then I have a regular size glue stick. I don't know which ones I'll be using just yet, so I decided to just plug them both in and just see how it goes. This tumbler is very simple to achieve. If you watch my Halloween Black Flame Candle tumbler tutorial, this is very similar to that one. So I'm gonna go in with my bigger heat gun to see how it looks, and I'll just be placing the glue on the top of the tumbler like so. And it's gonna be very hard for me to film this because you need to have your tumbler sitting right side up, because you want that glue to leak down or drip down the top of the tumbler down towards towards the bottom. So if you saw what I did there, I just clumped a lot of glue in one spot and then I just let it drop down like that. And you can see it's just going all the way down. And then I will repeat that process all around the rim, and I put a big glob on there because I want those drips to really drip. And you can see some strings from the hot glue. I know naturally you want to pull those, but just don't worry about it for now. Just wait, because I'll show you an easy trick to get rid of those whenever you're finished with this design. It's very simple. And that's all you do for your first step. You just put a glob of the hot glue, let it run down, and then go from there. So I'm going to finish the entire top, the first layer of it, and I'll show you how it looks whenever I'm finished adding the glue. I have my first layer of my glue placed on my tumbler. You'll see it starting to turn a little foggy whenever it's completely dried. So I let this sit and dry for about 10 minutes, and then I go on to my next layer. So I think I'm going to go in with my smaller hot glue gun just to kind of see how it looks. And then I might not like it and maybe switch to my bigger hot glue gun. All right, so I'm going to let this dry and then we'll go in with the next layer. Okay, now going in with my mini hot glue gun, you can see I still had black hot glue from that Black Flame candle. So I had to get all that glue from the glue gun. So I'm just placing this right above where I've already placed the other glue. And I'm just doing the same thing, just squeezing out a bunch and then letting it drip. Now I do like the bigger hot glue gun only because it does get a lot hotter than the mini one, but I do have my heat gun here, so if you do need to heat it up, you can go ahead and place your heat gun on the tumbler and it heats up that hot glue and it lets it fall down. So I think I'm going to stick with my big hot glue gun just for this tumbler. For me, I think it's easier, but I have done the drip with the hot glue with the mini hot glue gun, and it does work fine. I just add that extra heat with the heat gun. Going back in with my bigger hot glue, and I am just placing a dab over where I've already placed those the previous hot glue. So again, just having a lot and just placing it down the tumbler. And it's hard to see, but all I'm doing is pressing on the trigger of the hot glue gun, placing a lot, and it naturally falls down. So there it is right there, and it just naturally falls down the tumbler and it creates that nice drip effect. And this is a personal preference of what you would like to put on your tumbler. If you want your drips to be more thinner, then add some more glue, meaning add more globs of glue and then it will run down more. If you want it to be thicker, then kind of add it, and what I do is I add it and then I put my hot glue gun, I kind of shake it left to right as I'm dispersing the glue onto the tumbler, and that kind of makes that glue a little wider. So it is completely up to you. I really try not to overthink it. I try to just place the glue wherever I see a bare spot, and if it runs down a lot, then it runs down. If it stays in that spot, then it stays in one spot. So I'll be finishing this part up, and then once we're done with this, we'll move on with the next step. I've placed all my hot glue on my tumbler, and you can see there's a lot of strings on my tumbler. So what I do is I just take my fingers and you kind of rub them back and forth, and they come off the tumbler just like that. So I just kind of place them on my craft table, try to get all the strings off. Now, if there are any strings that just won't come off, I'll take a little X-Acto knife and kind of X-Acto knife it off, like this little piece right here. I just take my X-Acto knife and it comes right off. At least it should come right off. You just cut it right there, and then it's gone. So if you go around your tumbler, find any strings, just cut it right off, easy peasy. And then once the tumbler is dry with the hot glue, that's when we'll take it outside and spray paint this any color you like. I'll be using a white spray paint for this. It's going to just be a flat white spray paint, nothing fancy. It doesn't have to be flat. I just have flat on hand. If you want to use a light blue spray paint, a dark blue spray paint, an off-white, whatever you would like to use, I just am going to use a white spray paint. So I'm going to spray this outside, and then I'll let the tumbler dry, and then I'll be back with the next step. Welcome back, everybody. My tumbler has been spray painted white. If I do sound funny, it is because I have my epoxy respirator mask on to protect me from the epoxy fumes. My next step, I will be adding epoxy, alcohol ink, and glitter to my tumbler. I am mixing my epoxy right now. I have mixed a total of 14 milliliters of epoxy. That's 7.5 milliliters part A and 7.5 milliliters part B, totaling 14 milliliters of epoxy. The glitters that I'm playing around with this tumbler today will all be from Glitter Heart Company. The first one is Baby Blues. Then I have Cloudy Skies, it's more of a chunky mix. And then Winter Wonderland, it's Snowflakes. And for my alcohol inks, I don't know which one I'm going to exactly use, but I have 3 light blues here from Holtz. It's Aquamarine, Aqua, and Cloudy Blue. Now that I have my epoxy mixed, I'm going to take my alcohol ink, and I chose Aqua, and I'm going to put a couple drops in here just to see the color. Just want to make sure it's not too green and it does come out blue. I'm also going to drop 1 drop of the Aquamarine inside of the cup and then mix that together. So I like that color blue. I did 2 drops of Aqua and 1 drop of Aquamarine. It gives it a nice light blue. Make sure to stir your alcohol ink and your epoxy enough where it is one color. You don't want the stringiness of the alcohol ink to be in your epoxy. Make sure you're stirring it long enough until you see that one shade of color that you're looking for. And now turning on my cup turner, I'm going to now apply the epoxy and the alcohol ink onto the tumbler. And if you find yourself needing to add more alcohol ink once you've placed your epoxy on your tumbler, you probably don't like the color, or it needs to be darker, then you can always just go ahead and add more to this mixture in the tumbler and add it, stir it up really well, and then just add it right over your tumbler, and then it will mix in with that epoxy that's already been added. So you want an even coat, and I'm not adding too much epoxy. That's why I am just putting a little bit. I just want enough epoxy to turn that cup kind of that light blue, but still keep that white in the background on that tumbler. And you want to make sure you get into those little nooks and crannies on the top, which are those little icicles. So you want to make sure you're being very careful with that. So that's what I like to do first. I like to kind of focus on that all at once to kind of just glob it on there. And once I know it's on the tumbler, on those the glue drips or the icicles, then I can start taking the excess away and then start putting that in other places. And I typically do my handle last. What I'll do is I'll just turn off my cup turner real quick. I'll just put some epoxy on the handle, and then I'll epoxy that area real quickly. I didn't want this tumbler to be light blue. I still wanted it to be white, which is why I chose that white spray paint. And then I'm adding that blue alcohol ink over to give it that nice winter feel. And then before I do the handle, I'm going to go ahead and hit the bottom real quick. And now I'm going to turn off my cup turner and then add that alcohol, or excuse me, add the epoxy and the alcohol ink around that handle. And make sure you get underneath the handle and all around the handle where it meets that mug. And it's okay if you see your epoxy drip from the tumbler, or if you see it kind of dripping down. I'm going to turn on my cup turner here in a few seconds, and then it's going to spread that alcohol, that epoxy, all over that tumbler again. And then once it spins around once again, I'm just going to clean up some areas, try to get those nooks and crannies again, and just to make sure that all of this epoxy is spread evenly along around the tumbler. And don't chase your tumbler, don't chase that mug. So if you need to get that handle like you saw me do, just let it go right around, wait until it comes back around, and just kind of hit that with your gloved finger if you need to add more epoxy to it. So I'm really liking how that color looks. It looks like a nice snowy, a nice winter look. That blue is just perfect. I do have a little bit epoxy left over. I'm going to keep that to the side just in case I need more. And now to add my glitter. I'm first going to add the baby blues, which is that nice fine glitter. And I'm just putting it inside of a medicine cup, putting it in my finger, and just letting it fall wherever it wants to fall all over the tumbler. There is no wrong way to do this. Make sure you are getting the handle still. Remember, that's still part of the tumbler. And then I'm going to throw some on the bottom. So I'm just randomly throwing this anywhere it falls. I like this random effect for this tumbler. I think it's going to turn out really cute. And like I always tell y'all, make your tumbler your own. Create your own colors or your own amount of glitter, however much you want to put on this tumbler. Just make it your own, and I know it's going to be beautiful. And now to add some depth or dimension to the tumbler, I'm going to go in with my Glitter Heart Co's Cloudy Sky and just take some from that container and just kind of sprinkle it around. This is one of my favorite colors from Glitter Heart Co. This blue is gorgeous. Let me show you how it looks close up. I really love this color. And I love how thin this chunky glitter is. It's very easy to work with. It's not a thicker cut, so whenever you epoxy it on tumblers, you don't really have to sand too much whenever you add this glitter to the tumbler. And then for my final glitter, which is the Winter Wonderland, these cute snowflake chunkies. And again, just randomly placing them around the tumbler. Try not to go too heavy-handed with these things for me personally, because if I don't do one by one, then I know I'll end up dumping the entire container onto this mug, and I do not want that. So kind of flick them off, and wherever they land is where they land, if they can land. I like to have my backwards tweezers, as I call it, on hand for this, because sometimes with these chunky glitters, these shapes, sometimes they get caught like in the rim here, and so I just take them and I kind of just place them down with my backwards tweezers. Or if you place them and they're sticking up, like I see one here, I just take it right off, and again, I just place it down with my backwards tweezers. I make sure to wipe these tweezers down immediately, because when the epoxy sets on those, they actually become useless. And I'm finding these things sticking to me, so I think just placing them down with my tweezers, I think that's going to be the easiest. So I'm just grabbing some and just placing them right down, one by one. And like always, not forgetting the bottom of the tumbler. Once I finish placing the snowflakes on my tumbler, I'm going to allow my tumbler to spin on the cup turner for 4 to 6 hours. After 4 to 6 hours, I will then turn off my cup turner and then allow my cup to air dry or air cure for another 18 to 20 hours. I want a total drying time for this tumbler of 24 hours. Now that my epoxy, my glitter, my inks are on my tumbler, I'm going to let this spin, let this cure, so I'll see y'all in about 24 hours. Welcome back, everybody. My tumbler's epoxy is completely cured, and this tumbler is so adorable. I absolutely love this winter feel on this tumbler, especially it being a mug. I think it looks really cute on the 12-ounce mugs. I really debated to just keep this tumbler the way it is or adding a decal, but I did end up finding a SVG from Etsy. I will have this shop's link in my description below. I've already printed the file on my water slide paper. Again, I'll have that listed in my description below. I've sprayed my design with my Rust-Oleum crystal clear enamel. I spray 2 generous coats of this. So I spray it and then I let it sit for about 15-20 minutes, and then I spray the design again and let it sit for another 15-20 minutes just so it can dry. I'm going to place that inside of my water so I can have that backing be removed from that design. The temperature of my water is just warm. I turn on the cold and then the hot faucet, and I just let some water kind of fall into that container. And I guess we have a visitor for y'all today. My new assistant is very curious. Love you, Onyx. And let that water slide sit inside of the water for about 45 seconds to a minute. As you're letting that water slide sit inside of your water, go ahead and add some water to your tumbler and let it sit up straight. Whichever side you want to put your water slide on, it does not matter. And then you're going to lift up your water slide and you're going to see it remove from the backing. That's what you want. And then it's going to slide right off that backing onto your tumbler. And just make sure you remove that backing very slowly. And when I remove my backing, I always kind of push it towards my cup. You don't want to release the backing lifting up. You want to just lift it towards the tumbler, going with the tumbler. Take that silicone makeup brush, dip it in the water, and then you just squeegee out, or I guess makeup brush out, any of those stubborn little creases. So what I'm doing now is making sure that decal is actually straight on the tumbler. I'm adding more water. The more water you add, the easier it is to move around that water slide. Okay, just making sure that I'm going to have it lay flat and getting out those last little creases. And now that I have the creases out, I'll take a clean paper towel and blot around that water slide. That is just removing any of the excess water that may be on top of that water slide, just so that water slide will be able to dry quicker And then I've actually decided to add that same file on the other side of the tumbler. Instead of the mug having a front and a back, I figured I would just have two sides with that same file. And then being careful with this one because we do have that design on the other side of the tumbler. So instead of laying my tumbler on the towel, I'm just propping it up. I'm not letting that design touch the towel because I know sometimes I get a little heavy-handed and I don't want to rub that design off of my tumbler. So I'm just going to work with it like so. And then kind of flipping to see where these designs are. I want to kind of match them. And taking that silicone makeup brush and removing any of those creases from that water slide. Lastly, taking that paper towel and blotting away any excess water. So I told y'all I'm very heavy-handed, so I did place that on the towel, forgetting about that other decal, and I completely wrinkled it. The design isn't ruined, but it is a little wrinkly, so see what I told y'all? Be sure that you guys are very careful with that. So I tried to fix it, but it's still a little wonky. So unfortunately, I'm just going to waste this water slide paper and take off this design. See, sometimes guys, it just doesn't happen the way you want it to happen. You make little boo-boos, and now I just have one side of my mug, and that's completely okay. And here is this cute tumbler. For my next step, I'm going to let this tumbler dry. It's gonna take about 10 to 20 minutes just to make sure that that water is completely dried underneath that water slide. And then we're going to move on to epoxy. So this is basically how it's going to look under epoxy. So I'm not going to waste that time of this video and show y'all. This is a 12-ounce round mug from Makerflow Craft. So I would probably use about 15 to maybe 18 milliliters of epoxy for this. The only thing that I'm really sealing in when I do my epoxy is obviously the water slide I just placed, and then some of these little snowflake glitters. These glitters still don't have epoxy fully over them. Some of them are completely under the epoxy, but some are still sticking up. So that's why I would use about 18 milliliters of epoxy. That's 18 total. And then I would focus on those little areas of where those little glitters are placed. And then of course, I'll go ahead and finish up the inside of my tumbler. If you do need assistance on how to clean the inside of your tumbler, I will have plenty of help tutorials in my description below, so be sure to check that out. And I hope you guys enjoyed this Winter Wonderland tumbler. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.